Good morning, Unity Church of the Hills. Greetings from lovely Oakland, California. Just kidding. I'm back home, but I did take some time off. Went to Oakland and just basically recharged and connected with family and reconnected and worked on my relationship. Just had a great time. Also got a chance to tour some parts of Sonoma and wine country that I hadn't seen. Went up to Big Sur, had a great time there. Spent a weekend in Carmel, which is lovely. I mean, really lovely. And then watched some people kite surfing along PCH1. It was just a great time. But everything that's great has to go somewhere, and it brings me back home. So now I'm back home, ready to rock and roll and have another wonderful service with you. And thank you for those of you that have been tuning in every Sunday. Thank you for doing your part to keep this wonderful community moving forward in this time of change. You are all rock stars, but you know that. And if you're joining us for the very first time this morning and you have some questions, or if you'd like to find out more information, you can always type in the word connect in the comment section, and one of our ambassadors will get back with you to assist in any way that they can. So thank you, welcome, and let's have a great service and a great week and a great month. All right? Love you. Bye.
I know the Lord will take care of me. Good morning, Unity Church of the Hills. We are off to a roaring start. Thank you celebration. I can feel the Holy Spirit right in everything we're doing. So, hey, welcome to this morning. We're so grateful that you have tuned in and that, you are here with us today. And thanks, of course, to all of you who are supporting Unity Church of the Hills during this time. You're going online, you're using the app, you're sending checks to the church here, and we just so appreciate all of your gifts. They make such a difference and allow us to keep doing all the wonderful and great things that Unity Church of the Hills is here to do. And, before we do our mission statement this morning, I want to personally welcome back Roderick. It is so good to have you back. Great job on that video. And if you have not been on Facebook lately, what you will notice is Roderick, the weekend of July 31st, is doing a concert at the Georgetown, It's the Georgetown Palace. A night of soul and rhythm and blues on Facebook, the weekend of July 31st, so tune into that. I know I will. It should be awesome. So our mission statement here at Unity Church of the Hills is going to appear on the screen in a moment, and I invite you to speak it out loud with me, so we're doing this together. We put God first, celebrate life, serve truth, and empower people to transform their lives. And I would say all our lives. It's not just them, it's us. So, I want to recognize any first-time viewers this morning. Just know that you have found an amazing place, a spiritual beacon right here in Austin, Texas. And we so appreciate that you have joined us because unity, you see, is a positive path. It is a positive path for spiritual living that honors all paths to God. That wherever you are on your spiritual path, we'll gladly meet you there. And as Roderick said in the video, if you want to know more about Unity Church of the Hills, just type connect there in your screen, and one of our ambassadors will reach out to you. So now I just invite us to take this moment for our opening prayer as we just close our eyes and go within, allowing ourselves to feel that presence of the living Christ that lives, breathes, and has its very being in, through, and as each one of us. I know that the all-powerful, all-present, omniscient presence of God is absolutely immersed in all of life's expressions right now. And it is in that place that we connect with our very hearts. And so this morning, as we are gathered here in celebration, I know that we open our hearts to the music, to the message, to the prayers, the meditation, and that this is a time of soul renewal, that this is a time for appreciating and absorbing that healing power of love in your life. So whatever might be going on this day, or maybe a celebration from this past week, or even a challenge, know that you have come to the right place, that this is the time for feeling that healing power of love of the living Christ within you. And so I give thanks for this, knowing that it is already so in the mind and heart of God, and it is so in each of our lives right in this moment. So I give thanks. I release these words to that Spirit of the living Christ, knowing that absolutely it has already received these words, acted upon them, and made them so. And so it is. Amen. Let us begin.
Good morning, spiritual family. While we're in this virtual-only format, you can help us grow our spiritual community and spread the message of unity by liking our service and sharing it with your friends online. Throughout the service, as you are inspired or uplifted, we'd love to hear your insights. Comment and connect throughout as we continue to make the most of this situation. We're so grateful for all of our praying chaplains that are holding space virtually for us today. To receive prayer support from one of these beautiful souls following the service, please call 512-814-5365. Leave a message with your name, phone number, and request, and a chaplain will call you back. So you may say tomato, and I may say tomato, and however you say it, we've got a lot of it, thanks to our prolific community garden. So we invite you to stop by the UCOH bookstore for tomatoes, and so much more, available on a love offering basis. It is important that we find ways to create and maintain community. And if you don't have a network that you are plugging into on a consistent basis, we would like to recommend our virtual fellowship, which takes place every Sunday morning prior to the 11:25 service. Information and links can be found on our website, unityhills.org. So, if you take a yoga class online, do you call it Zoom instead of Zoom? Something to ponder. And while you're pondering it, consider joining our 2 online yoga classes. Donna Pinnell leads a Monday morning class at 10 a.m., and then Shen's class is offered on Fridays at 2 p.m. Both are offered on a love offering basis. Visit unityhills.org for more details. We Wisdom's fall registration is now open for 2-, 3-, and 4-day half programs. We Wisdom Preschool uses blends of both Montessori and traditional child development approaches to ensure that each child's needs are met in a loving, supportive spiritual environment. If you're interested in enrolling, taking a tour, or have any questions, please contact our director, Carrie Monk, at carrie.monk@unityhills.org. The nominating team is in the process of identifying individuals to serve on our Board of Trustees beginning in our new fiscal year. Board members are elected at our annual meeting held in November. Later this week, you will be receiving an email titled Board Nominations with what's expected of a board member and a link to a form where you can submit candidates for consideration. If you or someone you know is actively involved in UCOH, seeks to live unity principles, and possesses the skills to serve on our board, please consider putting forth your or their name. This is an exciting time to be helping to shape the direction and life of our church. Please look for the email and prayerfully consider names for consideration. You can stay up to date on all that's happening here at Unity Church of the Hills by liking our Facebook page, subscribing to our newsletter, and downloading our UCOH app. And now, it is with deep gratitude that we enter into a time of meditation. And so I invite you to take that sacred journey out of your heads and into your hearts, where we connect with the core of our being as love. If you haven't already done so, I invite you to close your outer eyes and remove anything from your lap. Signal to your body that it is a time of renewal and of remembering your divinity, remembering that you are a vessel of unconditional love. Become conscious of your breath in and out of your sacred heart, breathing in and breathing out. Allow the stillness of this moment to enfold you in peace. And now I invite you to bring to mind someone that you love very much. The thought of this individual brings a smile to your face, and you glow in love. As the images of this being flood your imagination, allow the sensations of love to fill you. Perhaps there is a warmth in your heart or a feeling of lightness. Perhaps the borders of your being soften until you expand to fill the room that you are in. Give yourself fully to this experience of love. Notice the sensations that are unique to you alone as you allow the vibration of love to have its way with you. Allow it to fill you from the top of your head to the bottom of your toes until you are marinating and radiating in love. Be curious, be kind, and be love in the silence. When you are ready, slowly bring yourself back into this time and space, gently opening your beautiful eyes.
The source of my strength. You are the strength of my life. I lift my hands in total praise to you. To you, you are the source of my strength, and you're the strength of my life. I lift my hands in total praise to you, to you. You are the source of my strength. You're the strength of my life. You are the strength of my life. I lift my hands to you. I lift my hands in total praise to you, to you. Oh, you are the strength of my life, Lord.
the source of my strength. In times of weakness, I turn to you, because you are the source of my strength. You give me all I need, because you are the source. Yes, you are. Standing firmly on your word, because I know you are the source, Lord. And I move forward because you are the strength of my life. Yes, you are. You are the strength of my life, Lord. Yes. When I can do nothing else, I just lift my hands. I lift my hands. Above all else, I lift my hands, I lift my hands, I lift my hands. When I have no one else to turn to, I turn to you and I lift my hands, Lord. Oh, yes. Total praise
Well, do I hear an amen, church? Woo! I feel like I've been to church. We should just do the offering now. Who needs a talk? Okay. I've prepared one. We might as well hear it. But I tell you what, that is one of my favorite songs, and that just touched my soul. Woo! Wow. Well, before I start, I just wanted to share with you the winning joke from online this past week. Was about a minister who asked a little boy if he prayed before each meal. And he said, no, my mom's a good cook. I thought that was great. That would have went over well in my house too. Well, so if you're interested in sending a joke to the minister here, just go ahead and put it in the comments online and we'll look them over. And if there's one I can tell on a Sunday morning, I might just share it, so do that. Well, my talk title today is The Healing Power of Love. You know, love is the key ingredient, I think, for any healing whatsoever. And as Charles Fillmore said, love is a regenerating power. And regeneration is not possible without love. He also shared in the 12 powers that science says that every atom has substance, life, and intelligence. I love that. I'm a quantum physics guy, and I absolutely know that every cell of our being, when I do a spiritual mind treatment, a prayer, affirmative prayer for healing, I always include that energy of love as part of the substance of every cell. I know it's at the very core of how we regenerate and heal life's essence. And I also want to thank Jean Lean for her 8 a.m. Contemplative service this morning. I know that she just started a series on the chakras. And today was about the root chakra, which is also the very basis of feeling into your body to allow yourself to feel that healing energy as well. So what is love? You know, love has a lot of definitions, to be sure. But I loved what Eric Butterworth said. He said, love is the actual expression of being loving. So a verb, not just a noun, not just a descriptor, but it's a verb. Love is something we carry with us everywhere we go. Now, some of you may remember about a month ago when I did my first talk here at Unity Church of the Hills, I shared a little bit about my healing path that December 1st of 2017, I had a spontaneous fracture of this left femur, one of the toughest bones in our body, and that actually led to the discovery within the next 2 weeks after that I had an experience of cancer. and it was very interesting to get that message. But what I want to share with you today is how the teachings of New Thought and all of the spiritual practices I learned, every teaching I had ever listened to was now in play. And it was through, I think, the very healing power of love that I'm standing here with all of you today. So, I went from being in a wheelchair, hard to believe, that at the end of 2017 I was in a wheelchair, moved to a walker, to crutches and a cane. But by November of 2018, I was now a walking, talking, scuba diving, and now interim minister today. So how did all that happen? That's what I want to share with you today, because I think it works for everybody. This healing power of love is right at our fingertips. And I'm going to use an acronym today to outline this talk, because I am a student of Dr. Roger Thiel, who is the dean of the Acronymic University. He loves that title. So the acronym lays out the four areas I want to focus on today, and the first letter of each area spells love. The first one is listening with the heart. Listening with the heart. The next one is opening to deep compassion. The third one is V for vulnerability, a tool I never thought would be as powerful as it is. And then the final letter E is for embracing the possibilities. Embracing the possibilities. So number one is listening with the heart. Not just the intellect or the mind, but with the heart. I love what Good Samaritan sister Claire Condon said. She says, listening with the ear of the heart can be a scary experience because it can call me to radical change, to a transformation of my limited human perspective. But listening with the ear of the heart is the very key words for this branch of Benedictine nuns. When I was diagnosed with what they called an incurable form of multiple myeloma in December of 17, trust me, it caught my attention. I was listening. And I understood for the very first time. I know, you hear this, you watch other people go through it, but it was the first time I ever thought, you know what? I could die. I might just die from this. And that's shocking enough, right? But what I was always so curious about as I was experiencing it is I never experienced fear. Fear wasn't something that showed up on the radar. But you know what? I did notice is I was listening with the ears of my heart. So I didn't just hear words. I actually heard from a place of feeling and meaning from the very depths of what I had learned in New Thought. When I was going through my addiction recovery and finally stepped into a church of religious science, I actually wasn't looking for a church. I just knew that I was on the path of healing. So listening was something I had been learning since 1988 when I stepped into my first New Thought church. But I love what Sister Claire said about the listening ear of the heart. She says this type of listening can empty one's own agenda. Trust me, when you hear you have an incurable form of cancer, it's got your attention and you actually have a bit of an agenda. And so she says this type of listening empties one's own agenda, fear of survival, assumptions, and prejudice. This creates an opening to empty one's mind of preconceived answers and solutions. I remember asking the members of Mile High Church at this time that I was going through early stages of my own cancer recovery, and I asked people not to offer me their solutions, to allow me the opportunity to be in the solution of spirit, to be in the place of guiding this healing from within. And trust me, when you do have those new ears, what's interesting about it is after several of the appointments that Tina my wife, would go with me, I often had to ask her afterwards what they said, because even though I made it look like I was listening to what they were saying, there was a part of me that was listening with my inner ear, with the ear of the heart. And what I noticed is I did that quite often to the prayers, the meditations, and to my God squad. All right, God squad, who is that? Well, that's all my ministerial colleagues, my practitioners, my friends, my family that I knew put me into prayer immediately. And, if you don't have a God squad, I highly encourage you to create one for yourself. It's a great thing. I know that I can still call on them at any time. But that is where I spent a lot of my time listening with the ear of my heart. That is where I think the healing began, is that kind of listening. The next one is the O, which is the opening for deep compassion. As I may have mentioned last time I spoke about this, is that, the pain of chemotherapy, I was tempted to close down and not let anyone in. It was so unique. I had never gone through this kind of an experience before. But the good news is that was only a fleeting feeling, and that I did let people in, especially my family. What I want you to know is your caregivers, for those of you who have gone through this, or those of you who just heard maybe that you have some physical challenge, your caregivers are angels. I mean, I'm still amazed how patient my wife and my two sons were, because every day I woke up, something that tasted okay yesterday tasted like sheet metal today. There's something about chemotherapy that changes your taste buds. The good news, I'll already fast forward. The good news, all the taste buds came back. But it was so disappointing when, for the longest times, M&Ms tasted like M&Ms, until one day I woke up and they tasted like sheet metal, those little screws, and I couldn't eat them for the longest time. So, my caregivers were certainly the miracle workers of compassion. But, there was a key shift. And when you're laying in bed because, my femur is healing and my body is shifting and I can't actually move, is I started to learn deep compassion for myself. Many of us are, I would say, stricken. That's the first word that came into mind, with having to be productive all the time. And, something like this kind of slows you down and puts you in a position where you actually can't do anything. And what I want to share with you is being in this position with a healing femur and going through chemotherapy. To give you the image is, think quarantine, except only in your bedroom and your bathroom. Those were the two rooms I saw most of the time for 4 months. And sometimes getting from one to the other was quite the struggle. And I had to ask for help every time I did it. So very humbling experience, but it was in those moments that I finally realized the person who needed to show the most compassion was me. And that wasn't the easiest thing to do. But I loved what Eric Butterworth said in a new book I picked up, Practical Metaphysics. He said this: intuitively, within ourselves, we know that love is an inner power, not an object, that our need is not to be loved, but rather our need is to love. Within every person, there is a hunger and a thirst to express love, to radiate love, to get ourselves in tune with the cosmic flow at the root of our being, to simply plug in, turn the lights on, and to express out of the overflow of this inner love a lovingness toward life. I want you to know when you are on the edge of the realization that you could actually die, and by the way, nobody's getting out of life alive. You all know that, right? But you know, when it gets close, you start really appreciating what you have. You know, the moments, the breath, the feeling of a good meal, all of those kinds of things. And I know a lot of us, especially in this COVID-19 time frame, are craving human touch, you know, the hug of a loved one and that sort of thing. And that will all be back. But you know, during those first 4 months of chemotherapy, I really learned and appreciated these words I just read. And of course, many years ago, while I was healing from a thirst for love and intimacy in my life, I remember my therapist at the time. She was the best therapist I ever had because she could look me straight in the eye and say, "Raz, you are full of it." And you know what? Nobody had ever had the courage to say that before that moment. And I loved that willingness to be honest with me. And, you know, I'm not as full of it as I used to be, for sure. But she said, "You know what, Raz, you know, because isn't it true that the more you learn, the more you realize what you don't know?" And so I think when I'm in my 80s and 90s, there's a whole lot I'm not going to know because I'm learning so much every day. But anyway, this is what she said. "Raz, you are awash in a sea of love, and you drink with a thimble." What she pointed out is that love was all around me. All I had to do was open to it. All I had to do was open my heart and let love in. That's the healing power of love, which leads us to the V in love, which is for vulnerability. I wasn't always willing to be vulnerable. That's why I was awash in a sea of love and only drinking with a thimble. You see, vulnerability was not something I was taught as a young man growing up in Minnesota. I love men's work, and I'm going to meet with Clay Boykins this week, and I'm sure we'll talk about the men's work that he has done. And, you know, being vulnerable isn't typically what young boys are taught. And what I know today is vulnerability is the most courageous act in any healing endeavor. Whether it's a physical healing, an emotional healing, a healing of the inner child, a healing in your relationships, a healing in our country, in our world. You know, I love what Mark Nepo said in his book of Awakening. He said, "One of the most painful barriers we can experience is the sense of isolation that the modern world fosters, which can only be broken by our willingness to be held by the quiet courage to allow our vulnerabilities to be seen. For as water fills a hole and as light fills the dark, kindness wraps around what is soft. And if what is soft can be seen, so admitting we need and ask for help, letting our softness show, these are the prayers without words that friends, strangers, wind and time can all wrap themselves around." I'm so glad that I was able to see that vulnerability was going to help heal my life. Because vulnerability, trust me, when you're going through chemotherapy and cancer treatment, it's kind of hard not to be vulnerable. You're in a pretty vulnerable position, to be sure. But you know, it was during the last, what they called big chemo, that's where I preemptively shaved my head, or my wife did. She seemed to have a lot of glee doing that too. I'm not sure why. But you know, I decided to go ahead and shave it because it was going to come out anyway. And I've liked it so much that I kept shaving it. And what I've noticed so far in my first week and a half here in Texas, Not having hair is a wonderful thing. But they do this big chemo, so that you can receive the stem cells. And in my case, they were my own stem cells. So in April of 18, 2 months before I had my stem cell transplant to heal me from cancer, they took these stem cells out, and then they reinserted them. And I went through that whole process for the next 3 weeks. And of course, oncologists and cancer specialists, they're a funny lot. I kept asking them, so how much more life is this going to give me? And you know what? They're very honest with me, and they said, we don't know. And I thought for the longest time, they're just not telling me. If this was a docudrama, everybody else is going to find out at the end how much longer I had. But the truth is, they just didn't know. 10 years ago, the treatment I got didn't exist. I thought I have perfect timing, that they actually found a way to treat this incurable disease. And what I thought was interesting, and I would share this with them quite often, what you call incurable, I'm going to bring secret sauce. And they loved that, and they found out what that was after a while, but it was the teaching, the New Thought teachings, the realization that I can bring the healing power of love to whatever is going on. I have a God squad that is praying for me daily, seeing the truth of who I am expressing itself. And so, it's the interesting news was I found out this big chemo strips everything from your bone marrow. I didn't think anything of that until I found out later I was going to be a pincushion, because you remember all those childhood vaccinations you had for measles and chickenpox and smallpox? I had to have all those all over again. So, because everything was gone. That's where it lives, by the way. It's in your bone marrow. And I'm a shot-averse person. So to get these hundreds of shots every other week was very interesting to get over myself, have compassion for my own feelings about it, and realize that this was the best thing. So that was good news, but the great news is here I am, an immune-compromised person. I'm in my RV in the middle of Florida as COVID-19 is starting to sweep the world. And I'm thinking, okay, the RV is a great quarantine vehicle. And so I get home just before our governor shuts down Colorado on March 18th. We got home just before that. But I thought, here we are in a pandemic, so timely, and the choice I get as Dr. Roger calls me and says, Raz, would you be willing to entertain the idea of being an interim minister in Austin, Texas? And I thought, I'm really enjoying retirement. It feels pretty safe right here at home. But it was in that moment that I made a choice. And I said, you know what? I'm willing to be vulnerable again. I'm willing to be vulnerable so that I can serve. Because this looks like an amazing community. I know we're not all here in person right now because we're doing all the right things. We're keeping our distance, we're wearing masks, we're doing all these things to stay safe. And trust me, I thank you and my wife thanks you, so that as we get on the other side of all this, I have the opportunity to live and appreciate all the possibilities of my life that lay before me. And I'm excited to be here because I know the future that lay ahead of us is exciting. The staff here is amazing, the board of trustees is amazing, and I know with the addition of whoever shows up for this November will be fabulous, and our music team is just amazing. So to be part of this launching of the future of Unity Church of the Hills, I wouldn't miss it. It's a great place to be. So I want to talk about the E in love. And this is really the segue that I was just setting up, and that is the E stands for embracing the possibilities. I think we're in a time of embracing the possibilities for Unity Church of the Hills, and I love the world of all possibilities. I am a student of quantum physics. I had, it's so funny to talk about this. I, as a ministerial student, had 3 or 4 classes as a ministry student on quantum physics. I thought, what is this all about? But I loved my teacher, especially Dr. Amit Goswami. And this isn't racist, but I love saying it just like he said it. And that is, consciousness is the ground of all being. And he would say this every time we met. And it still gives me goosebumps to say it in the way that he would say it. Because consciousness is what precedes every shift, every change, every movement in the universe, whether it's in our body or in our church, in our community, in our nation, and across the world. And each morning and each night, as I was being open to the possibilities in my own life, my own healing, one of the things I loved each day was each morning and each night, I listened to Joe Dispenza's morning and evening meditations. So every morning, Dr. Joe would help me set my intentions for healing that day. I wasn't going anywhere. Remember, bedroom, bathroom, bedroom, bathroom. So, the intentions were really about healing so that I could come here and be with you, right? And then the one I really loved is the evening, because Dr. Joe would then lead me through forgiving myself for not remembering what my intentions were for that day. And trust me, within 15 minutes, I'd already forgotten. Chemo brain is what some people call that. But in particular, I love the meditation for the evening because not only did it include forgiveness for that day, but also a profound statement that still guides my life today. And this is what he would say. He said, I invite you to no longer live from the memories of your past, and instead be defined by the vision of your future. I'm going to say that again. I invite you to no longer live from the memories of your past, and instead be defined by the vision of your future. So I started designing my future while I lay there in bed. Not only did I watch food commercials on the television, envisioning the day I would taste again, but I would think about my 2 grandchildren. The oldest will be 5 in August. Addison Grace, my granddaughter, will be 3 in October, just before my birthday. But I envisioned going to their high school graduation. I even got so bold as to envision being at their wedding. I also envisioned what it would be like to be healthy and whole and to scuba dive again, to walk again, to stand again, to do all the things that I had taken for granted, to watch my sons, both of our sons, grow up and have successful lives. The only thing I didn't know was in my future was being an interim minister right here at Unity Church of the Hills. That was a surprise, but so was COVID-19. So you can't always predict everything about your future, but boy, to live from the vision of my future, I think, is why I'm healthy, whole, and complete today as an individual. So I invite you to receive every day as a life filled with possibilities for your own healing. And I think that these 4 tools of the heart will help us experience that healing power of love. Listening with the ears of the heart, opening to deep compassion, especially for yourself, to be vulnerable, vulnerability. Why not? Why not? And, of course, embracing the possibilities. So now I just invite you to join me in just a moment of prayer. As we close our eyes and go within, allow yourself to feel that ever ready, that constant current of the divine presence, realizing that we indeed are expressions of that one mind, that one soul, that one source and one spirit. I feel it, I know it, I sense it at the very core of my being. And I feel that same connection with everyone in this room that is serving you this day, and everyone that is watching this service online right now. I know that we are connected and that we are lifted up. We are sourced from that divine spirit in every area of our lives, whether it be relationships or jobs or that life source, physical well-being. I know that in every area we experience that healing power of love right now. And so I give thanks in this moment for the realization that we are godlings. We are God in expression. We live from that place of the Christ within. So it is in that name of that Christ that lives within each one of us, acts as us, breathes, lives, and is the essence of our being. I know that this is so. I release these words to the healing power of Spirit, knowing that this is already so, and so I let it be. Amen. Yeah. So now is the time in our service when we get to support our spiritual community and practice. I love that word, practice, the law of circulation. I want you to know I am committed to it. I have found it to work in my life. I know it's working in yours. It certainly works in the life of this place called Unity Church of the Hills. And of course, there's a number of ways for you to give, and they're showing up on the screen behind me or your screen at home. So whether you're giving through our app, you're texting to give online, or by mail, we are so grateful for your generosity and know that it will return to you more than tenfold. So I invite us to speak our offering affirmation together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I circulate, and I am grateful. And so it is.
Remember when the doctor said, he said he couldn't help you, and remember how the money was getting low. You're hurting, now you're feeling low. Just when you thought the night would never end, the sun came out, now you can smile again. Jesus, you keep on looking out for me. Remember when the doctor said, he said he couldn't help you, and was getting low. You're hurting, now you're feeling low. Just when you thought the night would never end, the sun came out and you can smile again. Jeez, you keep on looking out for me.
What does it keep on doing?
You keep on looking out for me.
I said you keep
Keep on looking out for me.
Oh yeah, you
Keep on looking out for me.
Oh,
In spite of all I've done, oh, gee, you keep on looking out for me.
come on, say it. I shouldn't be here today.
I shouldn't be here today. And when I look back on my mistakes, it hadn't been for your grace. I don't know where I'd be, where I'd go. Who can love me like you do? And who can hold me when I'm going through? Gee, you keep on looking out for me.
What does the Lord keep on doing for you? Huh?
You keep on looking out for me.
Oh yeah, with all you do,
Keep on
keep on looking out.
looking out for me. You keep on looking out for me.
Say it again, you keep on.
You keep on looking out for me.
You keep.
You keep on looking out for me. In spite of all I've done, oh, in spite of all I've done, oh, in spite of all I've done, Jesus, keep on looking out for me.
Yeah. All right. Wow. The music has been awesome today. Thank you, Celebration. I'm feeling it. I heard Austin was the place for music, and I'm feeling it right here. So I can't wait for the Rhythm and Blues Soul concert on the 31st with Roderick. That'll be awesome. And that's online, so pretty safe that way, right? Hey, this is the time we get to bless our children. I know for you watching at home, those children are pretty real. For us, they're pretty virtual right here. But we're going to bless our teachers and our children right now. So I invite you to do that with me. Children, youth, angels, and teachers, we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the Christ you are. So breathe that in and send it out to all the children throughout our Unity Church of the Hills community. I look forward to the day, and it won't be forever from now. It'll be sooner than we think when we can all be together again. So again, thank you for your gifts, your tithes, your generous support of Unity Church of the Hills, because even though the campus is closed, we are still here. We're operating, and your gifts and tithes make that possible. So thank you very much. And just a reminder, we're going to do the Going Deeper. I think I called it last week, Stump the Minister. So we'll see how that goes today. Stay tuned immediately following our prayer for protection. So I invite us to speak our prayer for protection together. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you in a moment for Going Deeper. Have a great week. Take care.
Really appreciate you. So I was curious. I love that quote from Sister Claire about listening with the ear of the heart and emptying of your own agenda. And then I also love Dr. Joe and his work and having a vision for your future. How do you balance those two? You have a clear vision for your future and you let go of your own personal agenda. So I'd love it if you could talk to that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, especially when I was laying in bed there for 4 months healing, I had the opportunity to have a lot of those questions asked, and moment by moment, the answers would be different. But because you know, and it's always, this is why the God Squad is so important, is knowing that I have people that are praying for me and with me while I was going through my own, ins and outs of could I hold the truth for myself. It was nice to have that. So listening with that ear of the heart is really about paying attention.
Yeah.
That's why I like that Jean Lean is doing the chakras right now at the 8 a.m. service, because they're all about healing.
Yeah.
And the root chakra in particular is about being in your body. When you're going through a physical health challenge, being in your body is so key, so important. Yeah. So that, I think, is why listening with the ears of the heart is so key. But at the same time, I know the power of vision.
Yeah.
And so that's why I would watch television, and the food commercials were my favorite, as my wife would say, food porn. But but the truth is I would salivate over what I was going to eat when my taste buds came back.
Oh, right, yeah.
But, in some ways, I think it was planting the seeds. In religious science, I'll just lean into that for a second, all spiritual mind treatment, I think a lot of people struggle with saying things in an affirmative way, even though your current experience isn't that.
Yeah.
But as you can imagine, people who have laptops with their picture on the laptop is of a beach because they want to experience a beach.
Yeah.
Well, I did the same thing. I had in my hospital room during my transplant, Tina had set up a picture of white sand beach.
Oh, no.
And sure enough, when I got done with all that stuff, that it was very difficult. But that's where we were.
Wow.
We were on the white sand beach. So vision, I think, pulls us forward.
Right.
I know there's a special connection with Unity Church of the Hills and Michael Beckwith.
Yeah.
And, he was the first person that I think put into great words how to vision.
How to vision, yeah.
Because a vision pulls you forward.
Yeah.
So there's the long answer to a very short question.
It's a great answer. Thank you so much. And we have a couple more questions here. 2 people want to know how one goes about creating a God Squad, especially virtually, and how do you go about choosing those people, and how many is like that sweet spot? So
Sure.
Good questions.
I think the sweet spot for the number in a God Squad is hard to pin down. For me, it was relatively easy because it was my colleagues, that I served with at Mile High Church, but it was also my wife and some of the key practitioners that were around me, with me. And practitioners in religious science are just like your prayer chaplains here, a little bit more training, but same idea. So I would suggest to create a God Squad is maybe some prayer chaplains that you really connect with. And also, to use Facebook lingo, some BFFs, and, people you really resonate with. And here's the key part. I think a God Squad needs to be a group of people that can see the wholeness in you even when you can't see it for yourself. That is the key piece. Because, I have pictures from the night I arrived at the hospital, and those are not pictures I wanted to look at or have anybody else look at, because I wanted people to see me standing, walking, talking, scuba diving, and not see me in my presence condition, which was wheelchair. I had lost 86 pounds. So, I was quite slim for my health.
Yeah.
So anyway, it needs to be people that can see the truth of who you are.
Yeah.
That's the
Well,
key.
and you also mentioned something about not giving you solutions.
Right.
So they kind of like create that space, I guess.
Yes, and in a church of 7,000 members at Mile High Church, it became clear to me I didn't let everybody in on what was going on right away.
Yeah.
Because some people have a tendency to want to fix you.
Right.
I'm sure there's nobody like that around here.
Yeah.
I'm sure of it. And so I actually had a request the first time I think I did a video the first time, and I just requested that people not offer me solutions.
Yeah.
That let's be in the flow and let Spirit inform me through my God Squad, and also let the doctors do their work.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just key.
Perfect. Well, thank you. So we've got another question here. So you mentioned caregivers as hold on. My question went away. You mentioned caregivers are the miracle workers of compassion. Did your caregivers and others need your compassion, and how did that look? That's a great question.
It is a great question, and I love you, Tina. I know you're watching.
Hi, Tina.
And, I don't know that I gave them as much compassion as they deserved.
Do the best we can, right?
Yeah, you do the best you can in the situation. However, I did take my two biggest caregivers to Mexico in between the end of my chemotherapy and the beginning of my transplant. I took them to Mexico for 5 days as a thank you. So, yeah, I did show some appreciation, but I think anything you can do any day, all the time, is a really good thing, because I tell you what, I am so touched by caregivers. They do a thing, I don't know if they do it here, in the Leukemia and Myeloma Society in Denver, but they have a walk for light every year in Washington Park in Denver. This one's going to be emotional for me, but they start with, I think it's red lanterns, and it's called Light Up the Night, and the red lanterns are for the caregivers. It's the largest group in the park.
Oh, wow.
And then I want to say it's blue lanterns for all the people that had cancer of this ilk and didn't make it. And then the white lanterns, which I got to hold, was the people who, have been healed from their multiple myeloma or their leukemia. Well, the biggest group was the red.
Wow.
The smallest group was the white. So
Yeah.
I'm just so honored that I can be one of the few that needs to grow, but it's really in gratitude to those that hold the lantern for the
Yeah.
healing.
Well,
So-
and Tina, your wife, actually said that the way that you showed, I'm paraphrasing, but the way you showed her compassion was by you continuing to see your own truth, which is really beautiful. I hope it's okay I paraphrase that, Tina. Thank you for commenting.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm glad I was able to show that occasionally.
So, okay, I have another question for you. You talked about embracing possibilities. How do we access that world of all possibilities for someone, or how does someone who can only see their health challenge, how do they open to greater possibilities when that's overwhelming for them?
I can't promote Joe Dispenza's meditation CD enough.
I agree.
Because I listen to that every day for 4 months. And, a trained professional in New Thought.
Right.
And, when you're in the midst of your cancer issue, it's hard not to just see what's going on in the moment.
Right.
So, the meditation, the support, the caregivers, your God squad, these are all people to remind you. I mean, it's always true to have a group of people around you that can remind you who you are, even though you can't see your own light.
Yeah.
But it's probably never more crucial than at these times. So being able to see the possibilities is not, this is not for the faint of heart.
Right.
This is the most challenging work we get to do, I think, both as the person being healed and the person that's doing the caregiving, because at any given moment, it can be difficult for anybody. And, I tried to make it easier by bringing laughter, by bringing joy to the oncology clinic.
Right.
And my chemotherapy looked different than a lot of people's, but I tried to bring good feelings when I went in.
Yeah.
And so I'm still ministering while I needed to be ministered to.
Yeah. So you
But
were being a caregiver.
it
You were
helps
showing
me
compassion. Yeah.
to heal by being that. I have a good colleague friend who is going through a second bout with colon cancer right now, and what he does to see all possibilities is every time he goes in for his treatment, he dresses in costume.
Oh my gosh.
So, I mean, just recently for July 4th, he dressed, I don't know what it was, some July 4th-ish costume. But he's gone from everything from Jack and the Beanstalk to a clown, so to bring some lightness to the experience.
Yeah.
But for me personally, I'm a planner. So I actually planned what we'd be doing as soon as I was healed.
Yeah.
And ready to travel again. And Tina knows that I'm already doing that for when I'm done working this time. I already know where we're going and what we're going to be about. So I'm always seeing the future.
Yeah.
And this is what I could do at Mile High Church. I took our 300 prayer practitioners into the parking lot and took them on a tour of the new building before we ever tore down that area.
Right.
I was able to envision with them, this is what Joe Dispenza does in that meditation CD.
Beautiful. Thank you. And
There you go.
Kay, Christopher added to that, if I can get back to it, that it's actually rewiring the brain.
It totally
which
is.
It totally is, yeah.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
Joe all over the place. Evolve
sure
your
is.
brain,
Yep.
rewiring your brain. Joe Dispenza, I know he's been here, but
Several times.
doctors said he couldn't walk.
Right?
And I introduced him 3 or 4 times at Mile High Church, and trust me, he walks.
Yes, he does. Yeah, I've been to
walks,
one of
he
his
talks.
week-longs. And
So the
amazing.
power of the mind is amazing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Rewire.
Okay. So this is a great question. I love this one. So we'll see how you do here. How do you feel that we as a nation are drinking from a thimble at this time? It's a great question and you were speaking about that, I think, around vulnerability, I believe. So.
Yes, we are. You want me to answer
maybe
that?
the question is, how do we, as a nation, start drinking from a bigger vessel? Maybe is a better question.
Well, I think it is a question around vulnerability. And there is, my prayer now is for everyone to open their hearts to possibilities, because there's a lot of protecting going on. Protecting my viewpoint, protecting my opinions, there's a lot of protection going on.
Right.
And it is going to take vulnerability for us to heal.
Yeah.
We've been here before. I don't want to put any pressure on anybody, but the world is watching us.
Yeah.
And we're not looking so good right now. We're stumbling, we're fumbling. But I know that at the very root of who we are lies the possibilities waiting for us to recognize them. Yeah. And so, maybe we need to study our roots.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to study what we stand for and open up to the possibility that our opinions have gotten in our way, to being vulnerable to the healing power of love. I do think it will help.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's a great answer.
That's a tough question, though. Thank you.
It was. Susan wanted to know a few other good meditations by Dr. Joe. I would like to recommend his Blessing of the Energy Centers. Ties in beautifully with what Jean's doing. And he has a new boxes meditation that is fabulous. It's all about getting, if you've not done it.
I've not.
It's about getting from one box into a new box, new reality. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah,
do you do any other
I
of
don't
his?
do any of others of his. Do my own. And but yeah, that was the only one I had consistently listened to from an outside source.
Awesome.
But there's so many out there.
There are, yeah.
I mean, that is the beauty of the internet.
Yeah.
It's amazing what's out there. Discard the stuff that doesn't work, but focus on that which does. And you can put a theme for a meditation in your browser, and it's amazing what you can come up with. I didn't know Sister Claire before yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
I just thought, I'm going to put, listening with the heart in there, and that's where she came from.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, I got one more question for you
Okay,
here. What is your process for holding a vision for others when you see their truth that they're not yet able to see?
My process. What's interesting about New Thought prayers, New Thought teachings, if you do not have a prayer partner right now, I invite you to get one. And if that's a prayer chaplain to start, and if it's your BFF or somebody you connect with at church, because what I can tell you is it is always easier to pray for somebody else than to pray for yourself. Yeah. I've gotten good at it because I've gotten control of my committee, the committee. So they don't go into session unless I want them to, most of the time. But the reason to have other people pray for you is that they don't have the skeletons in their closet that you might have.
Right.
That part of you that wants to convince you you're not worthy of the prayer or worthy of this or that. So when I hold a vision for somebody, I don't have all that other stuff.
Yeah.
I look at Unity Church of the Hills. I don't even know what your skeletons are. I've chosen not to even look back far enough to see and rattle them.
Right.
That's not important. What's important is that what this church stands for and where it wants to go.
Yeah.
I'm interested, and I was part of this week the Zoom. Zoom is like a whole new lexicon
It's
for
like
us.
It used to be Google, now
I
it's
know,
Zoom.
now it's Zoom. We used to Xerox, now we Zoom. But anyway, I was on the Zoom call with the Board of Trustees and Dr. Roger going through the vision for the new senior minister at Unity Church of the Hills. And what I can tell you is when we find that person, male or female, whoever they are, if they meet all that criteria, woo, baby, watch out. It's awesome. But that's the way we set up a vision for our future.
Right.
And instead of living from the memories of our past.
Absolutely.
So that's the long answer to how do I see the vision for another. I don't have the memories of the past.
Yeah.
And you're a prayer chaplain.
Yeah.
I would assume you've been trained in similar ways to be able to hold that space for people. And by the way, often my prayers are this or even greater things.
Yes, absolutely.
This or even greater things, because I could still show up with a limited perspective.
Yeah.
And I know for myself, when I'm being guided by the memories of my past, because I will pause. It's like I need a break. I know I need to go get a strawberry shake. I need to go on a walk. Whatever it is, so that I can see properly the vision for my own future.
Beautiful.
But it does get easier,
yeah.
I must say,
Yeah.
you know. But it's
Well,
in those
how long
tough
have you been in
times.
New Thought again?
I've been in New Thought since Tina and I found religious science in 1987, so 33 years this
Yeah.
August.
So.
She went for 2 weeks to check it out, and she said it was safe, so I showed up.
That's awesome. That's fabulous. All right. Well, I don't see any more questions
All right,
on here.
good.
So do you have any closing comments for our
You
folks?
know, the last thing I would say is I'm still ruminating with the possibility of doing a talk or a series of talks on the inner child. I know there's been a lot of desire to, you know, do that workshop, that sort of thing. I'm not sure we can do the inner child journey workshop right now just because of COVID, but I could certainly give you ideas to do on your own that would at least put you in a place for the healing of the inner child. I actually think some of the healing that's up for us is old wounds.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I'm working on it. I
All
don't know when
right.
that's going to show up,
We're
but
excited
I'll
about
let
it.
you know.
Okay,
So that's
sounds
what's
good.
coming. Future attractions. That's
There
in
you
your
go.
future.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. You guys have a beautiful Sunday afternoon, a beautiful week. We love you.
Love you, and be careful out there. It's a little chilly. Take care. See ya.